So far we've only been framing one person, but what if there is a conversation between two people? Shooting from the side, we can place each talent on the vertical guidelines and furthermore apply the rules of framing depending on whether it's a long shot, medium shot, or a close-up. Having two people in the shot is also referred to as a two-shot. We're essentially focusing on the two talents. Both of them are equally important, a two-shot. But at the moment that one of them starts talking, we often cut to an over-shoulder shot. Here we have one talent in focus and the shoulder of the other person out of focus on the side of the framing. In other words, the shoulders acting as a foreground object. Now when looking at the rule of thirds, we're going to frame this shoulder in this example on the right side of the vertical line. Not on, but next to it. The subject itself can be framed normally on the vertical guidelines. Remember that these guidelines are there to draw attention to a subject. We don't want the shoulder to draw attention. It's just there as a foreground element. The over-shoulder shot gives you more sense of where we are at. We can see that the talent is talking to another person. So this is a kind of framing that we could use to swap between the two people as they are talking. We move the camera from one person to another. This is a very typical way, by the way, of capturing a conversation. Now, foreground objects don't always have to be a shoulder. It can also be a rock or a tree, anything. Having an out-of-focus foreground actually creates more depth in your shot. You start to see bigger parallax between the subject and the foregrounds. This is a very easy way to make your shot simply more interesting. Now, sometimes that foreground object does become more important. We're gonna go back to working with one talent, and that person is looking into the distance. Now, we could choose to make an over-shoulder framing. This way, we show that the person is looking at the landscape. But we can also place the talent on one of the vertical guidelines. Even though the foreground is out of focus, it becomes a more important part of the shot. Alternatively, you could even go for a center composition. A shot like this is oftentimes used to tell a visual story. The landscape is big and the talent is ready to explore it and go onto an adventure. Now, these are obviously more advanced camera techniques, but I want you to know that camera framing on an advanced level comes down a lot to visual storytelling. There are two ways of framing a subject, either to make a natural shot that is pleasing for the audience or taking it a step further to tell a visual story. The art of creating visual stories in filmmaking is called cinematography. And in films, you're going to see a mix of both normal shots and visual storytelling shots. For now, let's focus on the basic framings and get a good feeling of those first. And then we can go over to the next level.